Good evening. We are glad that you have joined us tonight. We're going to talk about breaking into sports. I am Stephen Cruz. I am a talent acquisition specialist for Gray Television. Before that, I was a producer and news director for Gray, and we are glad you're here. I am joined tonight by my boss, Vice President of Recruiting, Jennifer Dale, and then the incoming sports director for WRDW in Augusta, Georgia, Alyssa Lyons. Thank you for joining us tonight, Alyssa.
I'm happy to be here, and hopefully, we'll get some of those questions answered and help you guys on your success journey too.
So I'm curious, before we jump in, did you want to do sports from the start?
Oh, absolutely. I always call it my destiny. Like I feel like it was already like written in the stars. It was just a matter of time. My dad has been a football coach for 40 years. My mom was a D1 soccer player. I loved waking up in the mornings at 5 a.m. to watch the news at 12 years old because what other 12-year-old does that? And it was just kind of one of those things that I fell in love with. And I get to wake up every day and get to live my dream. So it's been one of those things where I've been very grateful, but it has been a very exhausting and also rewarding journey at the same time.
So I started in sports too, but it was in newspaper and radio, and it started out high school sports. And we'll talk about a lot of things tonight over the next probably hour. We want to answer your questions, so by all means, throw your questions in the comments. We probably will try to wait as close to the end as we can and just hit questions one after another as quickly as we can. I'm going to show you a video to start with, and I'm going to put up the little for educational purposes only. So we have that up there, but just a quick clip, and then we'll hop into it.
Answers? I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Okay, so sometimes we talk about this a lot. Sports is the hardest job to get in the business, and it just is. It's one of the hardest jobs in all of broadcast. We see hundreds of candidates each year that send us emails to the recruiting team saying, "Hey, I want a job in sports. I want to do sports." And so we get it. Everybody wants to do sports, and so we're going to try to guide you through that tonight. Not everybody's journey is going to be the same. Some are going to be harder to do than others, but we're going to get there. In saying that, how many sports openings do you think we currently have in Gray? I'm going to let Alyssa take a guess at this.
Gosh, I think the last time I looked, there was maybe 3. So it's got to be a lower number. I'm going to go with like probably 8.
Okay. Jennifer, how many do we have? I'm going to give you a help here.
I didn't look up. I was going to say, I didn't look it for we wanted you to tell me this pop quiz.
We have 11 openings right now, and they vary greatly. We have one. We have a couple with Raycom Sports, which we really don't do a whole lot with Raycom Sports from the recruiting aspect. We will tell you about those openings, but as far as that goes, that's pretty much the extent of it. But right now, we have a couple of really big jobs that everybody has asked us about: Birmingham, Tallahassee, and Atlanta. And so we've got those out there. So, but overall, right now, we've got 11 total openings. There, I looked it up. I kind of did some research before we hopped on here this week. There's about 40 sports openings outside of Gray right now too. So, and that's a number of companies. Probably the most I saw was 7 or 8 for one company.
I'd also like to point out that we have 10,000 employees. So, like, wrap your brain around that. We have 10,000, more than 10,000 Gray employees nationwide.
So, yeah, and this is kind of a breakdown of what every newsroom looks like. You're going to have an assistant news director and a news director. You're probably going to have somewhere around 10 to 12 producers, 10 to 12 reporters, about 6 anchors. Generally, we see 4 Mets and then some photogs and editors, some on the digital side. And then when it comes to sports, 2 if you're lucky. Occasionally, we'll see a larger staff. Sometimes we see even a smaller staff than that. We've got several stations that only have one person manning the whole sports department. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at sports jobs. Alyssa, how many do y'all have?
We have 2. So we have a sports director and a sports reporter who's also the weekend sports anchor. Other than that our newsroom is just full with MMJs and regular evening anchors. So our building is very, very tiny when it comes to sports.
So we see lots of applicants for each job that we have. Last year, Atlanta's first opening that they had, we had 650 applicants for that one job. In Knoxville this year, we had 262 applicants for that one. And you can kind of see here, even some of the smaller stations like Sherman, Texas, and Lubbock had over 150 in each location. So there are a lot of candidates that want just a handful of jobs. So what will it take to get into sports? One of the first things, I reached out to several of our sports journalists in Gray, and Nicole Griffith said, I would say don't be afraid to work and go and experience new areas if that's where the jobs are. And that's the first thing we're going to talk about. Be willing to go anywhere. You can't focus on just big jobs. You can't say you only want a job in a certain location. You have to be willing to go anywhere there's a job opening. Where was your first job, Alyssa?
Eau Claire, Wisconsin, right after the pandemic hit. It was about probably 8 months, probably 4 from when I graduated Syracuse, but it was 8 months at home until I had finally gotten my first job. And it was actually a news job. I was a news reporter and broke my way into the sports department, just picking up any shift that I could get. It was one of those things where you put in the work, you build a sports reel, and then that's how you become a sports reporter in that market.
I myself have worked in the Dothan, Alabama market my whole career. It's home to me, so it was where I wanted to stay and focus my time and my work. Jennifer, you, for example, you've been to several locations, but you got your start in Dothan, and then from there, it was everywhere.
Yep, Dothan, Mobile, Myrtle Beach, Columbus, Georgia, Johnson City, and now I live in Charleston.
So you just cannot say, okay, I'm only going after the job in Tallahassee, or I'm only going after a job in Knoxville. You've got to get a sports job, you've got to be willing to go anywhere and everywhere. And here's some examples of some of our newest hires in sports this year. And you can see between Stone, Maya, Josh, Sabrina, Harrison, Zachary, Jensen, and Armando, they've gone to a variety of places. Rockford.
Did I do that?
I think so. I'll let you. Okay. So Hazard, Midland, Odessa, Amarillo, Alexandria, Sherman, lots of smaller stations to get their starts, but they were willing to go anywhere to get those opportunities. Focus on storytelling. I can't stress this enough. Avoid highlights on your reel. Avoid play-by-play on your reel. Show how well you can tell the stories of others. And when it comes to sharing those stories, focus on local stories. Alyssa, you know this better than anybody. Talk about some of the pressures here and why it's so important to the market that you're in Augusta to tell those local stories.
Right. Anywhere. We cover Georgia, South Carolina, Clemson, Georgia Tech, and of course we have our Super Bowl, the Masters once a year that actually, all eyes are on Augusta, which is one of the most beneficial aspects of our job, because you get to meet so many people and you get to have these discussions. And anyone that I run into is telling me, hey, why go to ESPN and see the same thing every single day? Then why would you go to your local news and get the same exact thing? You just don't want that anymore. And nobody wants that sitting on their couch at home. So to that, I would say you have to find a way to do creative storytelling at every single opportunity that have, whether that's the anchoring shot, the first opening pieces of your video. Sound is huge. It can change your story so much. I try to incorporate that in any aspect that I can, whether that's just a nap pop at the front of our sportscast or just weave throughout, just to keep that entertaining aspect to our sportscast. But really finding those hometown stories that make your sportscast unique is so important, and also shows that you are so well connected to your community, because that is going to stick out to a news director. That's going to say, wow, that person can make the connections, and they can add on to those other stories that they're already reporting on and build this entire reel of just community-oriented sports stories, but also pinpoint some of those other aspects of storytelling in those bigger games, like the Georgia game, instead of just focusing on like, okay, he threw for 150 yards, he had 3 touchdowns, whatever. Tell me about, what was the chemistry like between him and the wide receiver? Is it working? Did they find their groove early in the game, or was it later on? Those are some of the things that I think a lot of viewers are catching on to, and it's easy for you to do at the local level.
And I talk about this a lot with students. I am a huge Alabama fan, Roll Tide, but if I want to see the latest info on Alabama, and others are the same way, they're going to have a subscription to Tider Insider or something like that. They're coming to us on the local station level to see local stories or local impact stories. What's your favorite local story you've done?
Oh, there's just so many. Probably during Kentucky Derby time. There's a couple, so we'll start here. During Kentucky Derby time, there's a horse training track probably 30 minutes from here. I ran into a trainer one day who I came to find out had picked 10 Derby contenders and 2 winners. So Palace Malice was his big winning horse. So I was able to find that, and it was really cool to go back through this man's albums and see, why he chose this horse and why he felt this horse was a winning racehorse, and how it ended up happening that he did become a winning racehorse like Palace Malice. And then probably recently was a package I did heading into the Olympic trials. We had 2 swimmers go to Indianapolis and compete. And I got that story word of mouth and was able to put it together. And it really just showed how well this kid would drive 2 hours away to practice and was dedicated to honing her craft in the sport. It was one of those things that you don't get every single day an opportunity to, 1, go and compete at the Olympic trials, and 2, talk to a 16-year-old kid that's going to be able to go compete against, a bunch of these nationally ranked swimmers.
We're actually going to watch that one now.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oil Stadium is all finished, and in less than 10 days, nearly 1,000 swimmers are going to be here competing for one of the 52 spots on Team USA. Here at home, one of our own just qualified for the Olympic trials. This is Olivia Stewart, a member of the Aiken Augusta Swim League. Her journey is a true definition of blood, sweat, and tears. Alyssa Lyons has her story.
Getting to swim in the Olympics is a dream for so many kids, but it doesn't happen very often. And with that in mind, Olivia Stewart went to her coach and said, I want to qualify. So they went to work.
2 years ago, this wasn't even a thought. Like, I would have been irresponsible for me to even talk about it with her.
But it didn't matter to Olivia Stewart.
I mean, I wasn't going to lose anything if I didn't try.
So she did. Olympic trial cut time for a 100-meter breaststroke is a 1:10.29. Entering this year, Stewart clocked to 1:12.4.
I knew from the start it was like a far reach. I mean, 2 seconds, it might not sound like a lot, but it's like a good chunk of time, 2 seconds.
2 seconds, the time that separates swimmer from Olympic prospect.
2 seconds in swimming is 3 body lengths. Like, that's a lot.
She had 13 attempts in a month to get it down. 13 tries to turn an idea into a reality.
But when you fail 12 times in a row, it should wear on you. Most kids, it would kind of wear on them and get them into a negative headspace.
Until swim number 13. They call it a lucky number for a reason.
When I hit the wall and I heard everyone just like screaming and cheering for me, it was like the most exciting moment of my life. It was incredible.
Her final time, a 1:10.13. Her ticket punched to Indianapolis.
Just to kind of take a look back at like 4 years ago when the last Olympic trials was going on, I was like barely starting swimming. I get to be around some of the fastest swimmers in the world.
And now she's one of them. If her story does not wow you enough, listen to this. After her freshman year at Evans, her family moved to Statesboro. She continued to drive here to the Augusta Aquatic Center for the next 3 years. She never missed a practice, just absolute determination to get this one done.
Amazing commitment right there. Augusta Prep graduate Amy Riordan also headed to the Olympic trials. The former ASL swimmer made it in the 200-meter freestyle event. So good luck, Amy and Olivia. We are cheering for you from home.
Nice job. That was a fun story.
It was so much fun. And the number of clips, it was just like, okay, where do I stick this here? It was like figuring out where do we put the nap pop here to kind of keep you interested. And the reveals throughout the story, I think, was something that, I was trying to figure a way to keep your attention grabbed, but also keep you pushing the story forward. And it was one of those things where there was just so much to her story. How do you all fit it in a minute and 20 seconds?
And now okay, there's a story ahead and a story after that. So that's always the cool thing, too, when it just doesn't end there. A couple of things that we heard from other journalists, sports journalists, Armando Berry, he's at WYMT in Hazard. He says, be an asset. Show managers what you bring to the table as a journalist and how you can help them, not just what you want.
Hey,
Can
we talk about that one real quick? What you bring to the table as a journalist. You're not a commentator. You're not going to be doing play-by-play because that's not what jobs at our company do. It's what you bring to the table as a journalist. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. And then focus on good storytelling and find an internship where you can get as much hands-on experience as possible. Most sports departments at TV stations will gladly take the help. And that was from Elliot with Arizona Family Sports. They take a couple of interns every semester in sports at Arizona Family in Phoenix. But again, storytelling, that's what it comes back to. And who is your favorite storyteller, Alyssa, on the sports side of things?
Oh, okay. This is actually one of our Gray sports directors. His name is Joe Daneman. He works at Fox 19 WXIX in Cincinnati. I think he's absolutely fantastic. If you ever get to see some of his stories, I find myself going into our own Gray separate programming, and I'll watch his stories on occasion because he just makes you cry. I always thought it'd be somebody from SportsCenter, and if you asked me back at Syracuse, I'd probably tell you somebody from there. But Joe Daneman is the best at what he does, and he's made it so everybody in the tri-state area, Cincinnati, Indiana, Kentucky, knows it. So if you ever get a chance to go and Google some of his stories, he will make you cry.
And I have messed up here. Surprise. My favorite is Tom Rinaldi, obviously from his ESPN days and his Fox days, but he is just so good at what he does in telling stories. And he just gets so creative and so imaginative with what he does. Jennifer, while I am fixing something real quick, I have left out a slide here when I downloaded this. Any thoughts you got at the moment? Any questions that we could answer?
Oh, sure. We can definitely do that. I jumped in. I'm getting, a lot of questions about internships. I'll use this opportunity to tell you guys that, that we do have a paid internship program. We take 450 interns or so a year. And I did have one really interesting question saying, I've applied for hundreds, but I'm not getting them. What do I do? Well, you know what? There's ways you can make yourself more competitive. For example, if you're up for a sports internship, join the club. You're just not going to be as competitive as someone who's looking for a news producing internship or someone who's looking for a news reporting internship. All right. So there's first. Secondly, when are you looking to intern? If you're looking to intern in the summer, that is the most competitive time to try to get an internship. So maybe you can swing an internship in the fall or the spring. That could also help you. And then just keep applying. And then two, also think about where you're applying. I think our most popular internship application spot is in Atlanta. Okay, it's a big city, right? But you're going to compete with a larger base. Maybe you have grandparents that live in another city. apply for an internship there. Maybe you have an aunt or an uncle that you could apply for an internship there. That will up your chances rather than being one person who's trying to get an internship in Atlanta, then apply in other places. The other thing that is make sure that you're including your work on there. A person who has a reel is more likely to get the internship than the person who doesn't. It's just like a job. If you're the best candidate, you're going to get hired. So you've just got to be competitive, even at the internship level.
And there's a lot to be said about taking the internship at the smaller stations, because you're going to get to do a lot more in that internship than you will in the big stations. We talk to interns all summer long, all year long for that matter, that are in the smaller stations, and they're getting to go out and report every day or shoot stories every day. And they're getting to create really good reels because of that. And so I think there's a lot to be said about that too. The other thing is, some say I've been applying. If you've already either graduated or have a job in the business, internship's not going to be something that they're going to look to you for. Those are for folks or for journalists that are still in school working to get that internship to finish their degree, things of that nature. They're going to get first consideration for that kind of thing. So remember that. So sometimes if you're already in the business and you're trying to find an internship, that's probably not what you're needing to look for. Where was your internships at, Alyssa?
Okay, so a couple places. When I was at Ohio University EW Scripps School of Journalism, I interned with the Cincinnati Enquirer. For a while there, I did do a lot of writing before I went off and decided that it was time to really hone into my broadcasting skills and apply to Syracuse. At Syracuse, I was a feature reporter for the ACC Network, which is ESPN's affiliate. I was also a photographer for Sports Illustrated, 24/7 Sports. And we also did this separate women's sports update that was it was a separate television studio attached to the Newhouse program that my friend and I ran, just centered on women's sports. So my game plan when I got to Syracuse was to say yes to every single opportunity because that's what we were told and what we were taught was eventually you keep saying yes, something is bound to come up and you're going to be one of those top candidates because you have put in so much work and shown initiative and you have decided that you wanted to learn those roles, even if it wasn't something that you desired, whether that's behind the camera, in front of the camera, taking your phone out and just doing stand-ups in front of an empty stadium just to get practice for a reel. You kind of have to be ready to just take on everything and anything and immerse yourself in trying to get something that is what you want to do eventually. It will happen for you. It's just one of those things where be a yes man for a little bit and eventually it will come.
I agree. The more people told me yes when I asked them intern wise, that brought them up the list as far as, okay, I've got this job and they were really a go-getter. I want to consider them for this. So internships are so important. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but the next step is think outside the box. One big thing that we are very passionate about in Gray is digital first. My friends over at WTVY in Dothan, they have the Future Masters Golf Tournament going on this week, and they've got 4 PGA players' sons in this tournament. And so one of them is Tiger Woods' son, Charlie. And so they have really been ramping up their digital coverage all week. A lot of stories hit the digital side. I got push alerts all day on my phone. And it was stories that will end up in newscast, or a variation of them will end up in newscast. But they made sure to get it on digital first, because everything we do, whether it be news, sports, or weather, we want to have a digital component and we want to get it out there first. Every one of our stations has a digital news desk. And this is used for breaking news a lot of times, a lot of breaking weather there. But I know a lot of stations that use this digital desk to do podcasts. Our station in Baton Rouge is doing a couple of sports podcasts every week from this. They recently had a podcast where they interviewed Drew Brees, who was inducted into the Louisiana High School or Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, I should say. And so they do all kinds of podcasts like that. So you could use the Digital News First desk if you're in the news right now to do something like that. Podcasting, that's another big one. And then, of course, social media. Grow your following on social media. Things like this. Think outside the box at ways that you can stand out above a very crowded field. Anybody have anything they want to add to that?
Real quick, I just want to point out that also remember that while you may have a podcast, you may even do a podcast once we hire you. That's not going to be your only job. That isn't the way this business works. Alyssa, have you kind of talked about like what a typical day looks like for you?
I haven't, but I can.
Can you? Would you mind?
Go for
Sorry.
it.
No, that's so great.
Taking us off.
So typically, since I work on the weekends, I mentally plan for the weekdays and trying to find some niche stories that fulfill our 6 p.m. news cycle. When I work dayside Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which is a 9:30 to 6:30 p.m. shift. So when I come in 9:30, I try to at least go to a practice if I can, depending on what story I pitch. So for just example purposes, I'll do what I did on Tuesday. So Tuesday, I found out that we had an Olympic show jumper here in Aiken, South Carolina, one of the counties that we cover. And they just hosted Team USA for the first time ever in their last eventing tournament before they head off to compete in Paris. So I talked about how they get the course ready for Team USA to come, what makes this a particular good spot for them to come this time of year, where most courses are dried out because of the heat. So as soon as 9:30 rolls around, I pitch my story for the day, head out there, go grab my interviews, my video. You always have to grab extra video because you never know when you're going to run out, especially when they have to use it for teases. You just don't want to see the same video over and over again, especially in a package. That's a huge no-no. So if any of you guys have 3 shots that are the same in a package, get rid of it, destroy it. Just don't let anybody see it on YouTube. And so we get our video, come back. All I do is log my audio after that, and then create my storytelling. I storytell a little bit different than most of our news reporters and sports reporters. I go in and add my nats first and then weave in my video of them jumping on top of it and then add in my track beneath. So I do a lot of plug and play is the way I call my edits. And by 6 p.m., if my package isn't in, somebody is banging on my door because there's a fire and they need to put it out. But I try to get my story in by 5 o'clock. We usually do 1:15 packages here because we have typically 5 people turning packages on any given news day. I'm also responsible for writing my own content for web. So I'll hand that off to our digital team just for them to content check it. So everything is ready to go by 6 p.m. and I can walk out the door at 6:30.
So you've got it really fine-tuned for each day.
Yeah. The best thing that you can do in this industry is find stories ahead of time so you don't run into those fire moments of, oh my gosh, my interview canceled. What story am I going to do today? That is terrifying. It's stress. It's anxiety induced. If you can totally not do that, great. Good for you. And always have a plan B story that you can whip out of your back pocket because that will happen to you if it hasn't already.
I think you're just right there talking about what the product you are of working with Estelle.
Yes. So you've done news.
Mention live shots either. Like if you're doing a live shot, you have to leave. Your stuff has to be in. We do 4, 5, and 6. If you're in a 5 or 6 o'clock show, you have to be ready to go by 4:45 to get to your location.
So you've done news and you've done sports, and you've had the story pitch for both. Do you feel like the news side of story pitching helped you for the sports side, or how do you feel about that?
Absolutely. It's really funny that you asked that question because when I was in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, I had to pitch 4 stories a day. 2 of them would be VOSOTs, 2 of them would be package ideas. Here, you just pitch 1 story a day, which is very nice. That means that you can go to as in-depth as you can to really sell your pitch, right? anytime you go into a sales meeting, you are trying to pitch an idea and you are trying to sell it to your news director. So what is the today peg? Why do I care? Why am I going to stick around to watch this? And I feel like I have the extra added bonus of like, okay, why am I going to stick around and watch sports? Well, I'm going to tell you why, because I'm going to sell you on this idea. So always think with your viewers in mind of who is this going to impact? I think that's actually one of our questions on our pitch sheet that we have to follow is who's the voice of this story? Who's impacted by this story? If it's not impacting more than one county, or at least the largest county in our viewing area, then we don't care. If it's not a bigger story, one of those things where you have to be able to on the fly say, okay, we have a kid committing to South Carolina football, but he's in Blackville Hilda. He's the smallest county of our coverage area. Why should I allow you to drive an hour and 20 minutes to go tell this kid's story? Well, he's a success story out of a small town. This is the jersey that they're going to be hanging on the rafters in a high school in the middle of Blackville Hilda, South Carolina, that will take the field on USC next fall. So it's one of those things that you have to find, why do I care?
And let's just talk about that really quick. Because you just hit the basics, especially in sports. If I see one reel that's talking about commentary, which is your opinion, if I see one reel that's talking about play, which is something that's happening right there, what you have to do is be an advocate for the viewer. Why should the viewer care about what you're showing? Like, with commentary, it doesn't matter. Like, nobody really cares what you think. Nobody cares what I think. My husband's addicted to sports radio. Why? Mainly it's, former players that he's a big fan of. But commentary, unless there's someone really secret and hiding and famous on this call, your opinion doesn't matter.
It's really funny that you say that too, because I was always told if you didn't play college football and you're offering an opinion on college football, like, I'm not going to take your opinion because you didn't get picked the same way. It's one of those things. It's like you can't analyze something that you've played in high school football when it's a different level of play. So it's one of those things you can find nuggets. Nuggets is where you kind of sell that play-by-play commentary role.
Nuggets, but not a long stream. And so I just hear, like, I'm on campus a lot and I hear a lot. I just want to do play-by-play. I can't help you. I mean, do we even employ any people who just solely do play-by-play? Maybe with Raycom Sports, maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
but
just throwing that out there.
a way where you can show your creativity as a storyteller. Like if you're calling highlights, if let's say you call like a Braves highlight, and it's Michael Harris II. He was just out because he got hurt. That's something that you can talk about all day long. And considering the fact that the Braves have a lot of injuries right now, that's how you can spin that. You don't necessarily have to stick to the X's and O's anymore. And I think that's the best thing that could have ever happened to sports reporting is that you get to go so far outside the box. So use it to your advantage.
You're a journalist, a sports journalist. Anyway. Go ahead.
So the next point is take a sports news hybrid role. If you cannot, there are only a limited number of sports roles. So get your foot in the door any way you can. And one of those is taking a sports news hybrid role. Alyssa has done that. Get your foot in the door. Everyone's going to cover sports. Every Friday night in the fall, every station is going to cover Friday night football. And so it's going to be all hands on deck. That's going to give you your opportunity to do some sports reporting. And then that's the opportunity to show your news director that you really are passionate about it. So when a full sports opening happens at your station, you've shown it through your work, not only on the covering like Friday night football, but in your news work as well. And then prove your worth. Can't stress this enough. Alyssa, you've done this. How difficult was it to begin with?
Okay. Remember at the beginning of this, I said it was exhausting. Well, this is where the exhausting comes into play. I was hurting probably December 2020 looking for a sports job. I went out to the Cincinnati Reds Stadium, Great American Ballpark, and was doing stand-ups for hours outside of there in Paul Brown Stadium at the time, just to create a sports reel. And I still wasn't getting any bites, but I still posted it, and news directors still reached out to me. So there is some sense in this. It gets better. Took a news role, and then every Friday night, like you said, there's football. I would come in, turn a VOSOP for news, and then go out and cover Friday night football in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which if there's a time change, the show starts at 10 p.m. So you are hurting for a deadline in Eau Claire, Wisconsin on a Friday night when games don't get over till almost 9:30 on occasion. And so I took advantage of every single Friday night to clip it for my reel. We also had a 30-minute digital special after our newscast. So that's where a lot of my ability to ad-lib came into play. And I was able to put that together for a reel, and had a call from Augusta in January. I had started in Eau Claire, Wisconsin in March of 2021, had put together this reel in such a short amount of time, just football season, truly, to get a call in January, a fly into the station by February, and start a week before Masters in April. So it can happen for you, and I'm living proof of that. If you take a news job, don't think that like sports isn't possible, because it can be. You just, again, have to show that initiative and willingness to learn, and soon people will pick up on that.
And I mean, and two, you've also proven yourself as a dedicated employee. When I was news director here in Charleston, I had a sports opening. It was the first one, and I never posted it. I had an MMJ that I'd hired right out of the University of South Carolina, and she'd worked so hard, and she'd been such a good employee that I knew she wanted to do sports, and I knew she was very good at her job. So I just moved her over. So, and I mean, that's a pretty desirable position, weekend sports in Charleston, South Carolina. So think about where you want to be and how you can get there and what value you bring to the table.
And Augusta is a prime example. You know, I've mentioned, okay, you have the opportunity to cover football. How many credentials do y'all get for the Masters?
We get 13. We get, I'm trying to think who was all on air. Our credentials are very particular over at Augusta National Golf Club. So we can have only so many people on air. Camera operators have to be camera operators, especially with our station, because we are the NBC and CBS affiliate. So we get some pretty primetime access at Augusta National Golf Club that week, which is fantastic. But yes, we are one of the larger stations to be able to go and do live shots at Augusta National Golf Club. Most of our other stations have to do look live packages. They are not able to go live. So it's pretty cool when you're standing right next to CNN and going live at 4, 5, and 6 on Saturday night. But we only have maybe 4 or 5 on-air badges. So it is pretty limited, and those are very coveted badges as well.
But my point being, it's more than just the sports team that's getting to cover the Masters week for y'all.
Correct. So we have we have our news director, our operations manager, our assistant news director, our all of our evening anchors. They all turn stories out there. I turn into a photog for that week. We have 3 other MMJs that turn into a photog for that week. So there are chances for you still to be able to go Augusta National Golf Club, like even if you are a little guy, and still make it out there and make an impact on your newscast. And we've actually sent those for awards and have come back with some pretty nice awards from that. But yeah, you do not have to be one of the main people to get a press pass for that week. You can be a regular weekend anchor and still get that job. And even a news MMJ can still get that job.
But again, it's another opportunity for somebody on the news side to get to cover something sports wise. we see it there. I know Savannah has mentioned it to me in the past that they have some news folks that go get to do the news stories from around the Masters. And when it comes to this week, the Future Masters golf tournament in Dothan, it's all hands on deck covering stories like that this week. And, you see that all over, whether it be small stations, large stations. News folks are going to get to do the sports side. And that's your opportunity to shine if you really want to do the sports side of things.
I think we had like 2 separate news MMJs come with us this year, and then they were editors. And then on top of it, like, you can still cover the local aspect too, which kind of gets you as close to covering it as well, as long as you pitch those stories. So like how the economic impact, and still kind of be a part of the coverage. You don't have to necessarily be like right on the grounds too.
Yeah. We this graphic was up earlier, but finding a mentor is crucial. And Bailey said she never got anywhere without the help from other people. She was grateful to have an inner circle to go to for advice or guidance when needed. I can't stress this, whether you're news or sports, have you an inner circle, have you a mentor that you can work with there. Bree at WTVY, she got her start as a producer in Huntsville at our station in Huntsville, but she really wanted to do sports. She's a Troy grad, and she kept reaching out to me and saying, hey, when you have this sports opening, I want to come. So eventually Bree got her shot to come work for me in Dothan. But she said one of the things, she spent a lot of her first few takes trying to mimic people around her or people that she had looked up to. But viewers at home actually thanked me for being different when I started being myself. Your strengths are what you make them, and be as authentic and free as possible. Jeff Roberts at WTOC in Savannah says, staying patient while working in local news leads to network roles that most, if not all, sports reporters aspire towards. It's important to learn how things operate from the bottom up, and being a sports reporter in local news is incredible preparation for that. Okay, so you want the job. We've talked about ways of getting the job. The next step in Gray is the Gray Talent Pool. This is an incredible resource that we have. Jennifer got tired of looking for reels on YouTube and developed this idea, and the rest is history. But the Gray Talent Pool, who can join it? News, sales, engineering, marketing, sports too. What you do is you go in there and you create a profile. You put in your resume, you put in your reel. It's going to ask you when you can start work. You put that date in. It asks the jobs that you want. It's going to ask you the location that you want. With sports, be very open anywhere. And then it's going to ask you about salary. I tell everybody, don't put a number in there, because you're going to either undersell yourself or oversell yourself. Put competitive market value. It's an option in there. And then once you do that, we're going to approve it. We're going to go through and look, see if there's any mistakes in your resume, look at your reel, see if it's what we're looking for. And the moment we do, any market that you said that you're interested in, they're going to get an email telling them that you're interested. It's a great resource to get yourself out there in front of a lot of people. Again, I would stress, if you're looking for sports, be open to doing news as well, because that's going to help your chances of getting that opportunity. Anything you want to add on that one, Jennifer?
No, just you're going to have to be flexible. I mean, if you're, I'm all for people following their dreams, but you also need to make sure you know what you're getting into, and that you know that what the degree you're getting will support you. You don't want to make a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 mistake and find out later that you can't get a job in it, and you're going to be working at Starbucks or UPS or something, because I see that a great deal. So make sure that you know what you need to do in order to. Can you do sports? Absolutely. If you're determined, yes. But just like anything else, you got to work toward it.
And we're going to pick the pace up. Allison Posey is a sports reporter in Tallahassee. She was the first female sports director in the state of Florida history. And I've known her for a while from her Panama City days. And she says, stay persistent, know what you want. Sports jobs are hard to come by, but don't settle for a job to break in the industry if it's not what you want to do.
Amen. And what I mean by that is like, let's say you're going to take that news job to get your foot in the door, and you go in and you just have a bad attitude. This isn't what I want to do. When can I do sports? Well, you took the job. Do it with a good attitude. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're going to have a bad attitude, not be happy, no, don't take it, because you're just going to get fired.
Also, make sure you ask those questions before you sign that dotted line. Is it possible for me to do sports? Because that's usually, that whether, seals the deal or not. It's one of those things I had when I was in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Like, is there going to be a chance for me to fill in on the sports desk? And they said yes, and we'll make sure that that's
know what you're getting into. Agreed.
Right.
Like, I mean, I've hired a million people who be like, well, I'm really hoping I can do sports. And I'm like, okay, well, this isn't going to be something you get to do every day. I understand that, but I'll make sure you shoot Friday night football. If we're covering a bowl game, I'd much rather have someone who is into sports to go cover the news angles on it than I would someone who doesn't know anything about it. I mean, that just makes sense from an employment. But I've also had people who took the job and are like, I just don't want to do this. And I'm like, we talked about this. We discussed it.
And she says, find an internship when you're in school, learn how the industry works. The business is all about who you know. She had some others. Don't have your eyes set on a professional market right out of school. Start small, cut your teeth. Find out what you like. If you're a big fan of hockey, find you a hockey market. If your high school's your thing, a market where high school sports rule is probably a good look for you. Don't let people sell you on a market size. Go where you're wanted and where you can thrive. Can't stress that enough. And one other thing I'll throw out here. I know you want to be choosy and you want to be picky, but you just can't be picky when it comes to these jobs. I know someone that had 2 opportunities this semester and turned both of them down, and they're still looking for a job. You can't. You have to take the opportunity, and both were sports jobs. So keep that in mind. And then lastly, this gets talked about a lot with Gray, and I wanted to throw it out here. What's next with sports and Gray? This is kind of what's next. We are working hard to create some opportunities to see pro sports on our local markets. And these are just a few of the ones that have happened over the last year. And I think you're going to continue to see that grow over the next year. So lots of things going on. I hope this has been helpful. We've got a few minutes left, so we're going to take these questions and run through them just as quickly as possible and go from there.
Here's one. If there are opportunities in places that have no professional sports team, would it be wise choice to take a place in a job like that? Okay, so let's just talk about that for a minute. Chances are you're not going to be covering a professional sports team. You're not. So, Stephen, why don't you talk about what you have covered in a small market where there is no professional sports team?
Yeah, Dothan, Alabama. Look at they cover Dothan, Alabama covers Alabama, Florida, and Georgia over the last 15 or 20 years since Nick Saban got there. Look at how many times Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, and Georgia have played in the national championship. So almost every one of those years we were covering a national championship and getting to go to bowl games and things of that nature. The bowl games, regardless, whether it was Alabama, Auburn, Troy, Florida State's an hour and a half away. So got to do a lot of that. Jennifer got to interview Cam Newton one time.
I did. And I mean, I've never worked in sports, but I've been, I was at national championship. I spent 10 days in Phoenix covering the national championship whenever Auburn was playing years ago when Cam Newton was there. And it was so much fun. So, I mean, find a market that is kind of sports. I mean, Nicole was talking in the chat about being sports adjacent. I mean, you'll get to do those. Work in Augusta, everybody covers the Masters, right?
Yeah, Super Bowl. Super Bowl. We love it.
Yeah, and if you're working in Charleston, we don't have professional sports teams, but let's just be real. If you're really into professional sports, you're probably not coming to your local television station to get that coverage. People who are coming for us generally want local sports. They want their high school football teams. They want, those type of things, not necessarily. I mean, yeah, when Kansas City won, did our station in Kansas City cover the Super Bowl? Absolutely. We cover it every year. But at the end of the day, that's not what you're going to be doing. That's not going to be completely your job.
In local markets, you're going to get to cover the next Bo Jackson, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods that are starting their high school careers and make a name for themselves. So think about that. How would you describe the work hours in the newsroom? How do you manage sick days, vacation days?
I thought it'd be interesting to talk about work hours because if anybody is on this call and you think you're going to be working 8 to 5 and working in news, like see her laughing, that's what you should all be doing. It doesn't happen. I've been in news for how many years, and here I am, 8 o'clock, almost 9 o'clock at night, sitting here talking to you.
I think
that is just the way.
Like, championship. I think I worked almost like I don't even know how many hours straight because with the time change, we were in SoFi because we had to be on air here. Mm-hmm. And by the time that the game got over, we were maybe 2 hours away from our morning live shots. So we stayed up and just did live shots through the morning. I think we got done by like 7:30. Immediately, we all crashed before we had our noon hit. So like you are working hours on end, but you can make it like I think you can make it fun, especially if you have really good coworkers too. It'll make the time go by really, really fast, but don't ever think you're going to work the same 8 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 6:30 every single day and
you certainly will never do it in sports.
Right.
Would you say though fall is probably the worst for sports?
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. Every weekend is a different shift. I will say I probably do the same shift on Friday Night Football, which is at least that's consistent because you come in the office by like 2:30, you work until midnight, 1 a.m., depending on like how well you guys are able to get stuff on digital. But Saturday, honestly, it's on God's time. You could be leaving by like 9:30 to get to Georgia because, oh, wait, they're having game day. So just kidding. You have to leave at 7 a.m. to beat the traffic to get there before like noon at least. And then you could be in South Carolina and covering the game all the way up until the very end. But, oh, wait, you have a live shot at 11 o'clock, which is 5 minutes after the game got over. You're not getting home till 12:30, 1 a.m. because you're in fan traffic. So, like, you're just constantly on go time. It's on in the fall, but it's so much fun. Like, it's my favorite time of year because that's why I wanted to be a sports reporter. And I get to do it every single Saturday. And I get to cover some of the best teams in the country living at where I am because we get Georgia Tech, Clemson, and South Carolina. So it's really, really fun.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd say the best teams in the country when you're talking about some of those.
I know South Carolina is for me a little bit. Sometimes it's painful to go to South Carolina, but like it is. The great one is Georgia out of that.
Well, there you go. Like I used to say that
for the little guys got to get some love.
So because I'm from Alabama, and I remember when I moved to Tennessee, I'm like, everybody's so sad here.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are fun things that you can do about it. And when your team does make it to that national level in the big games, it kind of reminds you why you do it. I used to tell people in our newsroom all the time, whenever we did a really good job covering something or we had a really big event, is remember how this feels. Remember how it feels right now, because you're going to need it whenever like you're tired or you're covering a hurricane. Let's just be real. You all may be here on a sports call, but if you work in a hurricane market, you're going to be a hurricane reporter.
I have been one of those.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is.
You just get called in, you grab your rain boots, and you're gone.
Yeah. I mean, because again, someone talked about what I meant by sports journalist. The journalist is the most important part of what we do. So, I mean, you've just got to be a good journalist.
So how do you manage your vacation time?
Okay, so family is extremely important to me. I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, so that's an 8.5 hour drive from here. I go home right before Masters Week because that's 2 weeks. We have Augusta National Women's Amateur right before, and even before that, we had the Sage Valley Junior Invitational. The Sage Valley Junior Invitational is one of the better junior invitational tournaments. Scotty Scheffler won there when he played at 12, 13 years old, going into high school, and then obviously is now a 2-time Green Jacket winner. So I go home right before that to make sure that I, totally just recalibrate, go home, drop my golden retriever off so that I don't have to worry about him and him not getting walked and fed. And then I go home 1 week out of the year in July. So you got to pick and choose on where you want to use it. Usually news directors are very flexible on either connecting your weekends together if you are a weekend evening anchor, or let's say your sports director, if you ask him, you guys can flip-flop schedules. Everyone's really flexible. And no, it doesn't seem like it from a lot of complaints, but usually people are extremely flexible. And then you just got to make sure that you also give yourself some time to take those breaks, because your mental health is really important, especially when you cover football from August all the way to January. Give yourself some downtime. That's the most important time. Find an activity outside of work too. I enjoy taking my golden retriever for walks, meeting up with friends at one of our workout spots. And so you just got to find different things that kind of fit into your life, but definitely have a work-life balance, or else you will not be successful, because you're just either going to hate your job eventually, resent it, and you do not want that to happen because you've worked really hard for this.
And I've seen most sports folks try to take one right before football starts because they know it's going to be a long stretch, or an example you mentioned, either right before the Masters or right after, when you've got a big event like that. So you can either get a breather on the backside, or in your case, you're shipping the dog off, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, and I get to go on another vacation tomorrow, so I'm not complaining.
There you go. I tossed this one in here because many people just choosing to go straight into sports in a large market just simply isn't going to happen. The competition is too fierce. But we do get a lot of this on the news side. What is the biggest challenge of going straight to a big market versus a small market? My answer would be don't. Go to the small market first, because if you trip and you fall, if you're walking across campus at college and you trip and you fall, do you want to do it in the middle of the football stadium on a Saturday where everybody can see you? Or do you want to do it, I don't know, kind of off to the side where there's nobody watching? Make your mistakes in the smaller markets. They're used to training. They're used to teaching. You'll get a lot more grace. Anyway, so look at there.
It's also different compared to a small market and a big market. While you might get a little bit more time to hone your stories in a bigger market, the best thing that makes a journalist is doing everything on your own and learning the industry. A lot of our friends had said on here was, you gotta be your own photog. You gotta pick up a camera. How to even put up a tripod if it breaks, how to makeshift a tripod if it breaks, editing software, because chances are if you go to two different markets, they're going to use two different editing softwares. So you have to be able to learn and do that on the fly to make sure that you're up to the scratch of what your other reporters are in that same market, or else you're gonna drown. It's either sink or swim there, and you're not going to be the one swimming.
Any other questions for us?
Do you think the sports industry is going in a good direction in terms of job opportunities? What I'm going to do is put it this way: I'm going to take Nicole's. I'm going to give you a bit of a non-answer, and here's why. There's always going to be a lot more applicants than there are people to do it in sports, and the reason is that sports programs at every college, just about every college we visit, are the biggest in the communications department. Universities are turning out thousands of students to look for these jobs. And we are the second largest company of our type in the nation, with more than 10,000 employees. And we have 11 openings. So you're going to have to bring something to the table in order to be competitive for that. So the sports industry is, at least in my view, in the next 5 to 10 years, there's no way that the number of openings is going to be anywhere close to the number of people looking for them. Mm-hmm. Stephen, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, the good news is we have seen a few more positions created this year in sports than we've seen in the past. So that would be the upside to that. But it's still going to be a challenge. There are just so many more candidates than there are positions.
I don't think the problem is going to be the jobs going away. I think it's going to be the number of people who want the jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's one that kind of fits all levels. When you move across the country to take a job, what are some important things that will help you transition? What you got, Alyssa? You've done it.
Definitely take as many items from home that'll keep you comfortable. The Eau Claire was filled with so many pictures. FaceTime was a constant. Make sure you carve out time for that because that'll help. Try new things, like go join a hiking group, like go join a running group, go join a walking group. That's more your vibe. Go join a painting class. Like try to immerse yourself in the community as much as you can when you get there, because honestly, if you're busy, like the less your mind is on loneliness. And I think that's the best thing about Augusta. Like you're able to like make friends really easily here. And I'm sure that's the same for a lot of small markets. That is the benefit, is that you're going to meet a lot of really good people and really good friendships that are going to probably survive the test of time as you guys all grow throughout this industry. And then you get to have people that will give you advice later on in your career when you come to a standstill of, should I do this or should I do that? But definitely always keep the phone nearby to talk to your family. Be willing to book those plane tickets if you live really far away. Make sure you carve out time to take those rest trips back home, even if it is a little bit further away than what you're anticipating. But yeah, try to make your transition as much as comfortable by joining community groups, talking to your family, and carving out trip time.
I'm going to call it this last question because, the presidential debate is about to begin, and we are all journalists. So this one, is something I hear a lot. Is it true that people who come from specific universities have a better opportunity of getting a position in journalism or broadcasting? So here's my thought on that. Talent is everywhere. We've got a Syracuse grad. Did I hear that say that's where you went on this call?
I actually went to the UW Scripps School of Journalism at Ohio University.
Oh, okay. And another great
Syracuse. Yep.
So, here's the thing with that. No. Your talent is what's going to determine, and your work ethic is going to determine your success. Now, do some universities have a legacy that is more visible than others? Yes. And usually there's a reason for that. They might have more tools to work with. They might have their own NBC affiliate. They might have any of these things that would give them students perhaps a leg up. But if you're determined to succeed, do it. Very, very, there are very few people I know that are determined to succeed that do not. Like, let's just,
if you've got a good reel, if you've worked hard and you come to me, we're going to provide you the same opportunity as somebody from a big school, whether you're a small school, whatever. We're going to work with you the same way. It comes down to how good your work is, how determined you are, that type of thing.
I do not have a journalism pedigree.
Kind of to put this in perspective for you, when at Syracuse, I had a class of 35. 5 are probably still practicing broadcast journalists. So I don't feel that the school really depends on it. Does it maybe give you a leg up? No, but I think your references do on there.
Yes.
Your experience does. Your willingness to go and send those emails to news directors or sports reporters across the country and just say, hey, are you open for a 5-minute phone call? I just want to pick your brain about something I watched, or, what did you learn back when you were 18 or 22 and you were at this job? I know there's been times back home in Cincinnati, I'll just pop into the Fox 19 station or our Gray station because I really idolize those guys as sports reporters. And I'll just be like, hey, I saw this the other day. How can I incorporate that into my sportscast? Or even a lot of friends that are conference reporters in the industry, they do a lot of digital stuff. So like, okay, I saw what you guys did here. How can I bring this back to Gray Television? And how can I bring this back to my station to make sure we get those clicks? And so these younger kids can get seen as these up and coming football stars. So there's definitely something to be said about just putting yourself out there.
Yeah, and you know what? Okay. And I will, just try to get to know the place you would like to work. Don't just send a bunch of emails. Hey, I'm looking for a sports job. No. But if there's someone from your program that, because I'll tell you, I love to help students that are going to school at my alma mater. You know, like it's just fun to be the person and rewarding to help someone. So work that. I mean, connections, you know, and just also remember, like make sure your stuff's grammatically correct. No matter what it is, you still need to be write a grammatically correct sentence. All right, Stephen.
Okay, we're gonna wrap. I'm gonna be quick with this. Someone asked about the future of professional sport. Our stations in those markets that are doing that are covering that on a consistent basis. Someone asked about grad programs. You don't have to have a grad program to get a job.
If you do it,
that's
do
not
it
going to
for
be. Yeah, that's not going to be a difference maker here. And then last, grayishiring.com is where to go create a profile. If you have questions about a reel, 5 to 7 good stand-ups, 2 to 3 really good stories. That's a wrap.
And if you guys ever need to contact me, feel free to LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever is easiest for y'all. If you have any guys questions, concerns too.
Thank you, Alyssa. It was nice meeting you. I didn't know you before tonight.
Yeah,
All right.
meet you too.
Bye, y'all.